Hello everyone, I would like to welcome you all in my class of CIS 2168 Data Driven Design. Now we are in week number 3rd and I believe that you all have completed page hit analysis successfully in week number 2. In week number 3rd, the focus is on temporal analysis and this is part 1 of temporal analysis. I am Dr. Harimohan Pandey from the Department of Computer Science and my email ID is given here. In this session, I have framed aim and objectives. So in this slide, I have presented aim and objective for this session. As far as the aim of this session is concerned, it is exploring temporal analysis for a given weblog. So this weblog we will treat as our data set and we'll use Python programming to work on this data set for temporal analysis. In order to achieve this aim, I have framed 4 objectives. The first objective is this, and it is discussion on temporal analysis. So under this, we'll discuss definition of temporal analysis, example for temporal analysis, we'll discuss application areas, we'll discuss challenges and how to address the challenges and steps involved to perform temporal analysis. In part 2, we'll discuss we will work with data frame and we will implement data frame using Python program. The third part is dedicated on statistical plot. So the aim is, in this part, the aim will be to understand the data and create the plot for visualizing the output, and we will use the plot for data analysis. And in part number 4, you will work on the tutorial exercise and portfolio task. So the basics of temporal analysis is presented in the next slide. So the first thing to discuss in this slide is definition of temporal analysis. So temporal analysis is statistical analysis and it will enable you to examine and model the behavior of a variable for a given data set over time. So we have a variable, let's say V is my variable. We want to understand the behavior of this variable and we'll use a data set and we'll analyze the behavior over time. So this is what the temporal analysis is. In order to explain the concept of temporal analysis in an effective manner, I have presented one example. And the example is on number of COVID-19 patients changing over time. So in this example, my variable is number of COVID patients and I am representing it as n_c_p, number of COVID-19 patients. I have presented one histogram graph, and this graph represents number of COVID-19 patients varying over time. Here, x-axis represents time in week-wise manner, and y-axis represents number of COVID-19 patients. So here you can see in the first week, that is here April 1 to 5, in this number of COVID-19 patients in week number 1 is equal to 2. Whereas number of COVID-19 patients in week number 5 is equal to 32. We can also see in week number 2 patients are 0, week number 3 number is 6, week number 4 number is 21, and here the number is 17. So the peak value is in week number 5. So here, with the help of this graph, we can notice that number of COVID-19 patients, that is this variable, is varying over time. So in week number 1 number is 2, then it is changing in week number 2, then again it is changing in week number 3, again it is changing in week number 4. Likewise, it is varying over the time. So in this example, as I said, number of COVID-19 patient n_c_p is my variable, and what we are doing, we are analyzing the behavior of this variable, which is changing over time. So in order to analyze in order to analyze this data, that is the data of patient, what we can do, we can apply temporal analysis in this scenario. In the next slide, I have given some application areas where temporal analysis play a very important role. So the application areas are listed here. We can see the application of temporal analysis in statistics, in pattern recognition, in temporal database analysis, for the optimization, for visualization, and for high performance computing. So these are some of the listed area. So this is just some area I have listed here where you can see the application of temporal analysis. If you want to apply the concept of temporal analysis, you may come across two key challenges. So the first challenge is listed here as C1. C1 is my first challenge and C2 is my second challenge. So the first challenge is how to provide data when user does not know how to describe the goal in terms of queries. A user is using the system and user is not knowing how to frame a specific query. So this is the first challenge, and the second challenge is how to get all time related information and understand large data. So if you have small data, then maybe you can figure out some ways to find the relevant information for any specific query. But if you are dealing with large volume of data, then it will be difficult to get all time related information for the large data. So in order to address these two queries, C1 and C2, I have given the addressing mechanism in this slide. So here the first point is temporal analysis is a single step process of finding the knowledge. So we can apply temporal analysis to find the knowledge. Let's say K is the knowledge which you want to find out. So what we will do with this K? So using this K, we can, using the knowledge, what we can do, we can enumerate the knowledge in the form of patterns, or we can develop some model based on the data set. So the pattern or the data model you can use to predict what will happen in the near future. And the next is temporal analysis is concerned with analysis of the data. So what it will give. So you can perform analysis of data and used for finding the pattern and regularity. So this analysis of the data you can use to find the pattern, and you can see the regularities present in the data set. So using these two mechanisms, we can address the queries, and we can address the challenges C1 and C2. Next, I have presented the procedure for applying the temporal analysis. So here you can see we'll start. This is the step number 1. So we'll start with the data set. You have to have a data set. Then suppose D is my data set. Then you will apply some methodology. M is my methodology or my algorithm or my procedure. Then the next step is generate an optimal representation of the data with time knowledge. So here the time knowledge is nothing but the time, that is day and time. So what you have to do, you have to have a data set D. You need to find out some appropriate methodology or some approach, some algorithm which you will apply on this data set, and the aim is to present this data set in an optimal manner, and this representation will contain some information related to time, that is day and time for this data. And then in this data we have some variables V, and using this representation we can analyze the behavior of this variable V which is present in this data set. So this 3-step process we will apply. This is step 2 and this is step number 3. This 3-step process we will apply for a small data set by making some assumptions. Now this is for the small data set. You can extend this for large data set. What you can do now after this, you can extend this 3-step process to deal with massive data set using the same assumption which you have used for analyzing small data set. So this is how you can perform. So this is overall procedure for applying temporal analysis. This block is representing for the small data set, and this overall block is for large data set, and both will work on the same assumptions. In the next slide I have given some key questions, 3 key questions, and you need to find out the answer of all 3 questions in order to perform temporal analysis. So the first question is related to time, and since here we are dealing with web log file, so we need to find out time, day and data for the website. What time of the day visitor or people access our website? Second, which day do people or visitor access our website? And the third one is which part of the site are used and when. So here data, here day, and this one will give you time. So this will represent in tabulated form T, D, D, this is day and this is data, and this data, this table like a structure is called as data frame, and we will discuss this data frame in the next part of temporal analysis. The next slide is given to present the summary. So in this session we discussed temporal analysis, basics of temporal analysis. We discussed 3 key questions, and in the next slide we will work on data frames, and we will implement using Python programming. That's all in this session.